It was a common event where we would sneak into a church late at night and wait for something weird to happen. This was not difficult, since I played guitar in a youth group for the church and was responsible for locking the doors up at night. I would walk around the church, locking up all the doors but one upstairs, which led to the outside balcony stairs. This night, after we were done playing, was no different. On this particular Halloween night, it was the usual suspects: Rusty, Wayne, Scott and Vivian, who had an on-again, off-again volatile relationship, Bev, Lynn, and I. My job was to climb the balcony stairs, enter the unlocked door, and then proceed through the church to unlock the downstairs door and let the rest of my friends in. I figured this time I would take Lynn with me, just for the grins. The only way you could see inside the church was from the streetlight just outside the front window, which let in enough light so you wouldn't run into things on the way downstairs. We made our way up to the balcony, through the upstairs Sunday school room, and down to the back door to unlock it without incident. Lynn, of course, crushing my hand the whole way. The crowd of us piled in out of the cold and found places we could sit and chat in the big room on the first floor. We settled in and began to reminisce about all the times this building had scared the living jujus out of us. Jujus? As we were all talking and starting to question our own memories about all the different experiences we had, starting to doubt if they ever really actually happened, we all heard a noise, as if something had just rolled across the floor in the next room. That room being the pastor's office. It sounded extremely heavy, like a safe had rolled from one side of the office to the other. We all stared at each other, and Vivian asked, "Did you guys hear that?" We all nodded and got up to investigate the noise. It was then that we noticed that the pastor's chair had moved from a position of under the desk to one in the middle of the room. This pretty much freaked out all the girls, and to be honest, the guys didn't look much better. We all looked at each other again, wondering what we should do, and Rusty went in to move the chair back under the desk. He said he could feel resistance as he did, though, and a cold chill ran up his arms. We all returned to the big room where Lynn, Bev, and I took a seat at the long table, kind of like a lunchroom table, and the others just stood there in front of us to discuss the incident. Again, our talk returned to our belief that we were probably just imagining all of this, and that things really never happened the way we thought they did. Scott had the floor, so to speak, and was being the most vocal about his doubts, when suddenly it sounded like there was footsteps banging right up behind him. We could all see that clearly there was no one there. This seemed to get everybody's attention, and a mass exodus began to occur. Everybody headed for the door, except for Lynn and myself. The only reason Lynn didn't take off like a banshee was because I had one arm wrapped around her leg, and I wanted to stay just a little bit longer to try and figure out what the heck that noise was. We sat there in silence for about a minute before we both realized that something was breathing heavily right in front of us. We could even smell its disgusting breath. I looked out the window to my left, and all I could see was the backs of all our buddies heading down the road at a rapid rate. Suddenly, Lynn tore out of my iron grip and soon became the next one down the road. The rest of the night in that church is a bit of a blur, and we never really talked about it again. The only thing I remember next is slamming the front door of the church closed and running away. I don't even think we locked up. I was so scared. When I was 14 years old, I went to a church gathering on Halloween night that was called Hallelujah Night. It was sort of a Christian alternative to Halloween. My family and I would get there in the afternoon since we volunteered to help set up booths, cakewalks, candy barrels, etc. But I mostly enjoyed it because I got first dibs on all the candy. After I finished helping the usual booth I would help set up, I took a seat on the bench near the main sanctuary. It was my favorite place to sit at, since I could see the entire lot, and most of all, the beautiful sunset. I pulled out my PSP and was scrolling through some music I had on there when some guy approached me and started a conversation. I've never been a people person, so usually when things like this happen, I keep the conversation short. However, this guy had a strange, almost comforting warmth to him, as if he was a friend of mine. As the conversation carried on, I started to ask him if he was new to the church because I had never seen him before. He told me he had been going to church for years, but left after an incident happened. When I asked him about the incident, he paused. He looked at me and said that there's some things that people pick up on and that you know aren't normal. Also, that you should never get curious about things that you know you should leave alone. I had sort of a confused look on my face since I didn't know what he meant at the time. He must have picked up on this and told me that I would understand when I got older. I looked down at my PSP that I had in my hands still, and when I looked back up, the guy was gone. I looked around, but I could not find him anywhere. It didn't make any sense. Fast forward a few months later, and I was sitting in the main sanctuary before leaving to do my usual volunteer work on the upper floors. The upper floors were a daycare area for children, and so at the end of service, volunteers would escort them downstairs, and I would go into each room, shutting off the lights and making sure no children were still up there. I'll never forget getting up there to do my usual duties when a pastor started talking about an upcoming funeral. I looked at the big screens on each side of the main sanctuary, and the face of that man was the face of the guy I was talking to on Halloween night. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. To this day, it still seems unreal. I was beyond shook. I made my way out of the main sanctuary and to the stairs that led up to the upper floor. Once I got up there, another volunteer confirmed that all the children were escorted downstairs. She noticed that I had looked sort of pale from seeing what I saw in the main sanctuary, and she asked me if I was okay. I told her it was nothing, and then proceeded to cut off all the lights on the upper floor as she left downstairs. The upper floor was like a giant hallway with doors on each side and a door at the end of the hallway with a giant window in it. When I came to the last room at the end of the hall, I would always leave the blinds on that big window open, since the light always illuminated the dark hallway and it made me feel less scared. But as I left that room, I remember feeling panicked. I suddenly got very cold, and I felt like if I left that room, there would be something in the hallway that would jump out and attack me. As I'm trying to muster up the courage to just run for it, I see the small head of a child peek out a couple doors down. It stayed there for a few seconds, and then it put its head back into the room. I immediately called out to the child, but there was no answer. The fear I had a minute ago was now gone as I left that last room to go through the illuminated hallway. I made it to the other room in a matter of seconds, turning on the light and searching the entire area for the kid I saw. But there was no one there. That's when that fear came back, and I started to get spooked again. I turned the light back off to get ready to leave, when one of the most terrifying things I've ever experienced happened. When I got into the hallway, I looked back at that last room down the hall, the one with the window that illuminated the hallway, and out of nowhere, a massive black mass moved in front of that window. The hallway was almost completely pitch black. It was like something was walking in front of that window, something big. It was enough to scare the life out of me, and I ran the rest of the hallway and down the stairs. I was stopped by one of the ushers who told me not to run, but when I told him what I saw, he just looked at me like I was crazy. Once church was over, I told my parents about what happened on the ride home, but they too ended up not believing me. But I know what I saw, and to this day, it still scares me. Okay, well, depending how you interpret that one, that was a little dark. Sorry about that. Here's another one to end the video on and lighten the mood a bit. It's short and sweet, so don't worry. It's called Halloween UFO. This is a true story. On Halloween night, I threw eggs at a tree that lots of people said was haunted. All of a sudden, lights were in the sky. Red, blue, purple. Lights started to scribble the sky, and the last thing I saw was an old man staring at me, who later ran away. This all changed my life, because now I don't trick-or-treat on that block anymore. Well, wasn't that last one terrifying? Anyways, I hope you liked the video. I'd like to do the next few videos Halloween themed, and then maybe do a bonus video on Halloween itself, unless that falls on a Sunday or a Thursday. If it does, maybe we'll do an extra long one or something. No, okay, I just looked it up. It's Monday, so maybe we'll do a third video that week or something like that. Anyways, yeah, I'll cut it there for now. If you liked the video, give it a like. If you disliked it, give it a dislike. Subscribing always helps. And if you see another one of my videos in the recommended, maybe consider clicking on it. It really helps the algorithm out. But yeah, I hope you have a great night, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.